This was inevitable. The radicalization of Gen Z. This is a great video by Cole Hastings. And look at this. He's got Karl Marx here on the left. He's got Donald Trump here on the right, which is, I got to be honest, kind of silly. Donald Trump does not equate to Karl Marx on the left. You could put a ton of other people. I don't know. You want to have fun? You could put Hitler, I guess. But sure, they put Donald Trump. He put Donald Trump. You got Nick Fuentes right here. I have no idea who this lady is or what it's all about. But this is a great video. He makes a lot of interesting points that I think it's worth listening to. And I want to provide some insights as an aging millennial on the matter and talk to you about what I think of Gen Z. And we'll hear what Cole has to think, and let's roll it.
Sort of. But beneath their external appearances are some of the most extreme ideologies the world has ever seen. Take a look at this guy. He goes by the name Clavicular online.
I love this. He starts off with a great example because it's clearly stupid. One thing the internet's done is it's allowed people who are probably never going to make it in any kind of media, make it in media. I mean, maybe you're some like round-faced, part Asian, genetically missing a tooth, and you're bald, and somehow you find your way to widespread success on the internet. Actually, yeah, if you guys didn't know that, I am literally genetically missing a tooth here, and this tooth right here is a baby tooth. That's actually true. And then it's funny because people are like, Tim, why don't you get hair transplants and just get like implants or like in your teeth or whatever? And I'm like, because I don't care. Because I don't care. Guys, I really do mean it when like probably not the thing you want to hear if you're working at this company. But, you know, look, I work very hard, but I'm not about to go, you know, I just put a beanie on, you know what I mean? I love that. But let's watch more and talk about the radicalization of Gen Z. You get my point. All right. You could be like, when would I ever make it in Hollywood? They're going to be like, fix your teeth, get veneers, and put on hair trans. You're too young to be bald, Tim. You're not going to be in any of these movies. I don't know. I just make YouTube videos, and then if people like it, they like it. And, you know, there you go.
Do you value hard work at all?
No, absolutely not. I value efficient work. I value smart work. Hard work is a ridiculous concept.
In order to optimize his looksmaxxing, Clavicular has been injecting testosterone since the age of 14, and he plans on flying to Turkey soon for a double jaw surgery. According to online sources, he's only 19 years old. And yet he has adopted what I think most people would consider a very radicalized view of the world.
I would say developmental disability.
Subgroups of different extremist ideologies like looksmaxxing are not uncommon these days. Now we have groypers, a term used to identify followers or fans of white nationalist and live streamer Nick Fuentes. On the left side, we have Antifa, or anarcho-communists, or tankies glorifying authoritarian communist regimes.
Let's go.
We have black pillars holding similar beliefs to looksmaxxers in regards to the fact that the only thing that matters is looks, while extending their beliefs outside of the looks realm to an all-encompassing doomeristic view of the world. We have hyper-masculine traditionalists and tradwives who think we should repeal the 19th Amendment, and hyper-feminists
your ancestors call upon you,
who think men are the source of all evil. When you scroll through the trenches of social media, Reddit, or underground internet forums, your first instinct might be to ask, how could anyone seriously think like this? But if you understood the world much of Gen Z inhabits, and how that world compares to the history of past generations of radicalized youth, this would not surprise you at all. So today, I want to talk a little bit about that history. I want to explain to you why the youth have always radicalized during moments like these, how that radicalization has adapted to the internet era, and offer a way toward maybe, just maybe, not necessarily compassion, but at the very least understanding. And then we can talk about what it would actually take to pull ourselves out of this.
So I do think that, you know, he has technology-fueled radicalization. And you have this point here. You can see the most viewed point. You can see the most viewed points are like actually the breaks in his videos. How do we stop it? Here's the thing. He starts with the question we need to ask, which I want to play for you guys. Economic instability, and I think he's saying decentralization. Viwoods. Oh, there's an ad. Institutions and adults failing. He makes a lot of great points, but there's really only one issue, and it's rapid communications. And I should play the question he poses, but I want to preempt it with this. You can fall into any community if they attach to anything that you can perceive. So, you know, I have to describe many religions as, it's actually not me describing this. I think this was the Pope, actually, that the other religions around the world outside of Catholic Christianity are looking through, the kind of description is there's a big building and they're all looking through keyholes at a small piece of it. Only those who follow Christianity are walking through the door and seeing the whole picture. That's what they believed. It's effectively like what he said. My view is with the internet, you have everybody looking at the world through this keyhole and seeing one small thing. If you could identify what that one small thing is someone sees and make it make sense, you can then manipulate them in any direction. So for a person who says, hold on there a gosh darn minute, I hear what you're saying, but I want to look at what other people are looking at, you get a more holistic view of what the big picture is on the inside of this building. For all these individuals who are, they're cognitively lacking, I suppose, or just lacking curiosity, they'll look through a keyhole and they'll see a poor person. They'll see a family. And the family is struggling to pay their healthcare bills. Then comes a radical individual who says healthcare should be completely free. It's a human right. They look through the keyhole again and they say, look at that family. There's rich people everywhere. Why can't we do this? Now, to a curious person, you'll actually investigate and say, oh, because there's no infinite cure for every ailment. There will always be something causing death. And we actually have radically reduced mortality by advancing technologies. So stripping the wealth from everybody and trying to pay for infinite cures when cures don't exist. There are some treatments for genetic disorders that cost millions of dollars. You can't give it to everybody. However, not everybody has the capability to research and understand these things. So what happens? They go online, find a community, get reinforced in their worldview, and then they go insane. And they end up like this looksmaxxing guy. But here's the question.
In order to understand Gen Z's radicalization, we need to look at its contributing factors. It's not enough to just throw up our hands and say, wow, these people are so out of touch and stupid, as true as that might seem in some cases. We need to ask, what kind of world produces young people who think this way?
Indeed.
Switching the framing like that can provide us with a perspective that might help cool our anger towards these groups' harmful or hateful beliefs, while allowing us to observe historical trends that answer the question I just posed.
Doesn't matter. Sorry, it doesn't matter. Let me, here.
Historically, young people are more prone.
The point is this. The radicalization has happened. Now, we can try to assess how we solve this, but my friends, what y'all don't understand, I'm saying to the people who are following, I shouldn't say that so derisively, but what many people don't understand, I should put it like that, because many of you probably do understand this. The seeds have been sown, and these people exist. There is nothing you can do about it. The problem needed to have been identified 20 years ago, but it wasn't, because we're not paying attention. The ramifications of the world we created are now becoming apparent, and these 25-year-old psychopaths are going to vote. You can't strip them of their vote. You can't ban them from doing it, and there's no way to rectify 20 years of social development in this way. Think about it this way. You ever wonder why it is Japanese people can't say L's? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, it's actually true. Like me, I'm actually a little bit Japanese, just 5%, but I'm 20% Korean. And I always found it funny that there's a Lululemon, and there's like a meme, I don't know if it's true or not, where they're like, why did you name your shop Lululemon? And he's like, because Japanese people couldn't say it was funny. They would say Ruraremen. And there is, I always thought it was funny. I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Inuyasha. And it's an anime that's on Adult Swim, back when I was a kid. And it's pretty popular. It's a top anime. And there's an animal they call Kilala. But its name is actually Kirara. No, I'm sorry. It's Kirara. They say Kilala. Sorry. Wait. Do I have it backwards? I don't know. I can't remember. All I know is they couldn't say the word right. For whatever, I think it was in Japan. I don't know. I'm getting it mixed up. Anyway, the point is this. For someone who speaks English, the la sound, la, very easy to do. But if you grow up in Japan or in China, they say, what is it? In China, they can't say R's. Is that what it is? I have to do it backwards. And then in Japan, they can't say L's. I don't know. The point is, you'd think you'd be able to go to an individual who grew up first language Japanese and say la. Put your tongue to the top of your mouth, right behind your teeth, and le. And then just drop your tongue and hum. Another thing that's really funny is this. How many of you can whistle? Right? How many of you can hum? How many of you can do both? So I know a lot of people who can't do that. And I don't know why I can, but I was a kid, I could do it. You hum and you whistle at the same time, and you can make that weird spaceship noise. The point I'm making is, when it comes to Gen Z's development in their minds, the same reason why many people can't get over an accent, they can't learn to speak in a way that sounds like a native tongue, is because their brain has been ordered in a certain way and their muscles developed in a certain way. And so they struggle to say certain vowel sounds. For instance, it's very difficult for non-French speakers to get a proper nasally noise and when you pronounce words. And for many who don't speak Arabic, to get the ha sound in many of the words they use, I'm not going to pretend to be good at it. But people in America will say Tehran instead of Tehran. And I'm probably not even saying it right. This is, we have not developed these patterns. We don't have this muscle memory, and our brains are not developed in this way. So for Gen Z, already radicalized, you're very unlikely to break them out of a worldview where their brain is hardwired to believe it. Let's play more.
Prone to radicalization when certain conditions are met. And the conditions I want to focus on in this video are economic instability and declining optimism, adults and institutions failing to provide stable meaning and a sense of generational betrayal, and massive technological shifts. And if it isn't obvious to you already, all of these kind of work in tandem. One affects the other, and so forth and so forth.
Only thing that matters is technological shift. With respect to this guy, he seems very well read and very intelligent, and I respect his argument. But what I'm going to say is, the point I was making with foreign countries, if you take away access to the information, they cannot become this. You know, it's I was talking to someone about their kids, and you know, it's a little bit of an old story, but they were watching these YouTube videos that were psychotic. These YouTube kids videos are literal psychopathy. And when I said, hey, put something else on, kid's dad, he was just like, well, he gets really mad unless we put this show on for him. So I changed the show to BBC Nature Documentary. And when the kid started getting frustrated, what I did, and this is a little kid, like 3 or 4, I looked at the TV and I went, whoa, what's that? And the kid immediately was no longer agitated and looked up and just started watching. And I said, wow, is that a bird? What kind of bird is that? That's so cool. Now, the question I had for the dad is, why does your kid even know this exists? If your kid never saw this video, they wouldn't want it because they don't want things they don't know exists. I mean, this is an old principle from everyone's favorite Tim Apple. I'm kidding, Steve Jobs. When asked about the iPhone and this new format, he says, how do they know they wanted it if you don't make it? How do they know they want it if you don't show it to them? And it was an interesting prospect because people kept arguing that you want to find what people want and sell it to them. And he said, no, you want to make something really great that they're going to want. So the issue we're seeing with the radicalization of Gen Z, I do want to jump at, we should play some of what he's saying about economic instability, is that when they get access to the internet, they can see things and learn about psychotic things, and they can fall into those traps.
First point, economic instability and declining optimism, using a time where mass radicalization of the youth reached a somewhat similar popularity as it has today, post-World War I Germany. Germany came out of the war defeated and humiliated, sending the economy into full hyperinflation. By 1923, the monthly inflation rate peaked around 29,500%, meaning prices were doubling every few days. One US dollar, which cost 50 marks in 1920, was suddenly worth 4.2 trillion marks by November 1923. Middle-class savings, pensions, and long-term wages were basically erased, and if you're young people watching your parents' finances vanish overnight, the message is pretty clear. The system doesn't work, and the adults in charge have no idea what they're doing. Hyperinflation got tamed by 1924, but the damage to trust was done. Then, the Great Depression hit. Industrial output fell by roughly 30%, and by 1932, around 6.1 million Germans were unemployed, about 1/3 of the working-age population. Historians writing about this period talk about a, quote, lost generation of jobless youth whose entire entry into adult life was barricaded. Being young in 1930s Germany often meant no job, no prospects, and no clear place in society. Does that sound familiar? Now let's talk about how this funneled young people into extremist thinking. In this context, radical political groups became one of the only places offering a story that made sense out of the chaos and a path to feeling useful and important. On the far right, the Nazi Party and its orbit leaned hard into youth recruitment. After the crash, Nazi electoral support exploded from about 2% of the vote in 1928 to 38% by mid-1932, making them the largest party in the Reichstag. Paramilitary groups like the SA and earlier Freikorps units, often made up of men in their 20s, gave disoriented young guys uniforms, camaraderie, and a sense of political purpose.
Yep.
But the clearest example of this youth funnel is the Hitler Youth. Membership was relatively modest at the end of 1932, about 108,000 boys. But after the Nazis took power and started suppressing rival youth organizations, membership skyrocketed to 2.3 million by 1933 and around 3.6 million by 1934, and kept climbing in the later 1930s. It's important to note that people don't necessarily adopt extremist racist ideologies simply because of economic instability, but if there's some part of that embedded already within the culture, and then a strong enough, confident enough political leader produces enough propaganda to convince you that your problems will be solved if you attach yourself to these racist ideologies, that's when it really starts to sprout.
But I understand why he's saying racist ideologies, but doesn't need to. Literally any ideology. Like when Zoran Mamdani says free buses, what I've warned for people is that these young guys, young women in Brooklyn, some of them are stupid, and they're going to be like, he'll make the buses free. And you're like, that's not possible. But some of them are smart. Many of them are smart. And you'll go to them and say, he can't make the buses free. And they're going to laugh and go, I know that. And you're going to say, well, then why are you voting for him? And they're like, they will tell you, I will never own a home. I will never get health care. I will never see my birthright from this country. So burn it all down. Zoran can go in and take everything from everyone for all I care. The system is broken. And at the bare minimum, I will get a little bit before it all comes crashing down. And that's what a lot of them think.
Far left, there was somewhat of a similar story. The Young Communist League of Germany, the youth wing of the Communist Party, grew into a dedicated militant organization whose membership peaked in the tens of thousands by the last years of the Weimar Republic. So you have one set of youth channeling their anger into nationalist extremism and racial hierarchy, while another channeled it into revolutionary extremism and class war. But both sides are reacting to a structural reality where their future was stripped away from them, and in that reality, extremist organizations promise three things that normal institutions can no longer promise, which is certainty, belonging, and a future. Without thinking too hard, you can clearly see how much of this mirrors the material conditions and cultural narratives happening in the West today. The unemployment rate for Americans between 20 and 24 just hit a 10-year high, excluding the pandemic. And for the first time in the last 40 years or so, the unemployment rate for recent college graduates aged 22 to 27 is higher than the unemployment rate for all workers.
Also, our debt to GDP ratio is at around 120%, which is economic collapse signifier. We are not producing enough product, and we are spending more, so we are going to see massive inflation year over year. It's going to get real bad real fast. And then you have credit card debt, mortgages, general debt held by the American population has reached record levels. So I hope you're ready for a roller coaster, my friends.
While renting prices have cooled down significantly, the general cost of living has not. Any Gen Zer can tell you how unaffordable daily life feels now, even with an average job. And of course, the rising cost of education throws them into thousands of dollars of debt before they can even get started.
More importantly, college will never get you out of this debt. It will make you a slave forever, and that was always the case. Young people, and now middle-aged people like us older millennials, I'm just about to enter middle age, to be completely honest. I realized this a long time ago. I got lucky. I ain't going anywhere near college. But many other millennials went to college and they still can't pay off their loans, and they're in their 40s. They will always be in debt, and there is no escape.
System like this, it's no wonder that young people are more susceptible to latching on to extremist ideas, because those ideas, unlike the solutions proposed by people who are more nuanced and sit in the middle of the political spectrum, are vivid and establish a clear enemy, which to them at least is much better than having no purpose at all. But I want to expand upon that point a bit further after going into the next condition which usually leads to radicalization in a society. Adults and institutions failing to provide stable meaning and a sense of generational betrayal. But first, I've been talking extensively on this channel about being chronically offline. Before the internet became the youth's primary source of information, most of your sense of how the world works came from a few big pillars. Your family, school, maybe a church or religious community, and whatever image of the country you got from news, movies, and politics. If they're functioning well, they offer some kind of answer to questions like, what matters, who can I trust, and is the future worth working toward? It's common for the youth to disagree or even rebel against the most common answers to these questions, but they still form a stable backdrop. However,
more importantly, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you don't know it exists, you can't want it. And that's good and bad in many ways. Harriet Tubman said, I freed many slaves. I would have freed many more if only they knew they were slaves. Interesting. And it's fascinating that the idea of self-governance, which sort of existed in Greece and Rome and, this ideas of ancient democracy, but was largely done away with, had to reemerge. Classical liberalism and the Enlightenment. Ideas had to be discovered. Some ideas that were, or maybe I should say, not necessarily discovered, but articulated. I think discovered is a fair way to put it. Concepts. Some of them are really stupid and break everything down, kind of like communism. Some things are actually kind of fine, like capitalism, the private ownership and transfer of wealth between individuals who trade freely amongst themselves. There should be some laws to govern, stop exploitation, manipulation. It's hard to create a stable system, but these ideas didn't always exist. Now, we can look at technology, but there's two components to social development. It's not just technology, it's also methodology. Understanding how to do something simple. For instance, we know we need shelters, and we figured out how to cut wood down and shape it to make cabins. Eventually, we figured out better ways to do it, much more quickly, with cheaper materials, and now houses are technically a lot easier, though they're getting really expensive. There's also that really cool Japanese joint work. The methodology of cutting the wood and putting it together means you don't need nails, screws, or glue. You can literally just shape the wood. Methodology can streamline a particular process. But let's jump ahead to technology.
But by far, what is probably the biggest contributor to radicalization of all types that has undoubtedly affected all of these other conditions is the rise of the internet and smartphones. The globalization of information allowed us to educate ourselves on so much, but it also made it remarkably easier to fall into echo chambers of misinformation and extremist thinking to help us explain why we feel so lost, empty, hopeless, and displaced.
Correct.
It is not just politicians or people in power who can do the manipulating now. Anyone with enough confidence and perceived authority can lean into your confirmation bias, convincing you that your struggles are due to some singular life flaw or a certain group of people, when the reality is far more complex. Looksmaxxing is one of those examples. Often looksmaxers align their beliefs highly with the black pill ideology.
It's very, very cringe. Lookmaxing, I don't want to single out any kind of look. There's some merits to if you're more attractive, you get more stuff. That's true, but this is crazy. There's also like the red pill dating stuff where it's just like, dude, if you're treating your lady this way, you're cooked. There's a sad reality. You're never solving for these problems. I respect people who are trying to quantify and understand the world around them. The problem with relationships for Gen Z is a combination of technology and social development. The reason why people used to have successful marriages is actually quite simple. You grew up with each other. You wanted similar things. Your life goals were aligned. You viewed things morally in the same way. You respected certain work in the same way because that's what your community said to you. Now, so let me put it like this. I'm very lucky. My wife and I were both from Chicago. We both grew up listening to similar punk music, both interested in very similar things, action sports, skateboarding, etc. And both lapsed Catholics from a young age. She went a little further than I did. And so what ends up happening? We grow up in somewhat similar ways, working class families. I was in Chicago. She was just outside of Chicago. And the Catholic upbringing, the music, so when I buy a record, chances are she knows it and she likes it, and we're both happy with this music. But imagine you're from New York and you meet a woman from California who's like, a surfer and you're in accounting, you grew up in a financial family and, you're on Wall Street and you're a day trader, you may find early on infatuation, general attraction, but in the long run, your views are dramatically different. I'm not saying it's impossible to have a relationship in this circumstance. I'm saying, well, in scenarios like this, you may come together and say, she's really great. She's strong and capable. Her surfing background, she's got skills that I don't have, would be great mother. She says, this guy can financially provide and he knows the world I don't know. But then what happens when you have kids? The kids are growing up and mom says, I want my children to be free to experience the world and go into nature. And you say, I have no problem with that, but they need to focus on their studies. And then all of a sudden comes the animosity. Your worldviews are not completely aligned. There become disagreements and arguments. No, I don't want to go to vacation I don't want to go visit Newport Beach. Like, I wanted to go to the Hamptons. And then she says, why? The surf is terrible. My point is this, not that it is impossible for these relationships to exist. In many circumstances, it actually works really well. And, they compromise, they're accommodating to each other, and they say, I love experiencing these new things I've never seen before with you. Love really can exist. But for most of human history, relationships were built upon, we both grew up 10 miles away. We saw the same farms, the same hills, went to the same churches. My dad knew your dad. We trust each other. And we grew up as kids. We all want the same things. That's how it used to be. Check it out.
This is a sphere on the internet who believe that without good looks, you have zero chance of attracting somebody, getting a good job, or achieving basically any amount of success.
Which is just absolutely insane because look at me. I'm married and I'm rich. Those looksmaxxers.
The foundations of society set them up for this kind of thinking. Before someone even considers themselves a black pillar, they're usually someone who's having more difficulty with women than they ever would have in previous generations.
Agreed.
Largely because the dating market has skewed in ways shaped by technology and a lack of stable opportunities.
So what I will add to this, I know it's getting particularly into like a lookmaxxing stuff, but here's an important component that I've talked about quite a bit. When I was 18 or 19 years old, we would go and hang out at colleges. I didn't go to college, but we'd, with our peer group did. So my friends would be like, we're going to go to UIC or we're going to go to Columbia. We're going to hang out. There's a dorm party or something or a house party somewhere because people would like rent houses offsite. And you only knew who was there. So when I show up, there's young women and they're like, my dating pool is this. And for me, I was like, my dating pool is this. To be fair, we did have MySpace and Friendster back then, and we were on it, and we did meet people through that, but it wasn't heavy dating. Okay, Cupid did exist, but it was light and not really that prominent. There weren't mobile phones. This is kind of crazy. So you'd meet people on the internet, but it was kind of weird to say you met on the internet. People were kind of embarrassed of it. Where's it happens? Back then, so a 20-year-old guy meets a 20-year-old woman, and he says, hey, we're going to go to Rick's dorm and order pizzas and hang out and smoke pot. Do you want to come hang out? And she goes, yeah, that sounds fun. And that's it. And they go and they hang out and they watch movies. And then he puts his arm around her. She leans her head on his shoulder. And he's like, yo, I think I'm going to go out with this. This is great. Not too difficult, is it? Where are we today? Young guy, 20 years old in college, says to a young woman, we're going to go to Rick's dorm room and we're going to order pizzas and watch movies. Do you want to come? And she goes, let me get back to you. I'll for sure. Then she opens up Tinder and here's a 30-year-old guy. He's got a car, convertible. He's got a studio apartment overlooking the lake in Chicago. And he messages her and says, you are beautiful, young lady, and I'd love to take you out for a nice dinner overlooking the lake. How about it? And she goes, wow. Yes. Texts back Jimmy and says, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to make it. Rain check? And he goes, sure, I guess. And he's wondering what he did wrong. Why doesn't she want to hang out with me? Nothing, bro. You can't compete with a 26-year-old, 27, 28, 29, 30. Every guy of every age ranks 22 as the age they want to be with, even if they're 50. Weird. Not that they will do that typically, but that's what they find to be most attractive. So then what happens? Today, young men struggle to form relationships because women have an open market, not just of their peer group, but of the entire male space due to the technology. So a 28-year-old single guy who makes $70,000 a year, he says to you, I'll pick you up, I'll bring you to a bar, we'll get cocktails and a delicious meal, and then we'll drive to the lake and, or go to a movie. And poor, broke, student debt, 22-year-old guy says, I can't afford that, I'm sorry. Not that every young woman is going to choose the older guy, so I might be creeped out, but the point is that pressure exists and it didn't used to.
So what do? They go searching for answers online. Confirmation bias pushes them to focus only on what already feels true, which might be the belief that everything comes down to their looks. They start
Indeed.
consuming black pill content in a viscerally emotional state, and the experiences within that community mirror their own.
So this is a really interesting post. Let me go back. And he highlights this. My life experiences continuously validate the black pill. He says, I am a 23-year-old male, 5'6", short, skinny Asian guy living in Toronto, Canada. Here are some of my life experience. He says, the most conventionally attractive people in my extended family also happen to be the richest and envy of everyone else. The least attractive just so happen to have no family, earn the least, and be resentful as well. Well, why are you why are you skinny? I was going to say short and skinny, but no. I get where you're 5'6", you're short. But why skinny? Why don't you start eating some protein and exercising? I'm not saying get jacked. That could also be seen as compensating, but you can still be fit. I don't find this as an excuse. I think the reality is you are envious and you are not working hard enough. Loneliness, never had a girlfriend, no likes in the dating apps, don't seem to be receptive in real life as well. He says, I see more attractive people in my life. It makes it so easy. He's making a mistake.
Slowly, they seep deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole, and that ideology seeps into everything they do. I can only imagine some version of this happened to that clavicular guy I mentioned at the beginning. Because let's be honest here, if technology and social media didn't push us to focus on the more superficial aspects of humanity, if the economy was stable and people had a fairly easy time getting a job and a partner, and it wasn't revealed that basically all institutions are lying to us and there's little meaning to extract from any of this, do you think the thought of I need to become a Chad looksmaxxer would have even crossed this guy's mind? Absolutely not. But the conditions of society today create the perfect concoction to produce more radicalized young people because radicalization gives them something to grasp in a world that feels increasingly nebulous. It also gives them a sense of identity, which is unbelievably important when you're young and something that social media and institutions have broke. And
Here's
that's another
I want to show you like the apex of his video. I recommend. I skipped a bunch. I always recommend. Hey guys, go watch Cole Hastings. Watch the full video for what's missing because I'm mostly just ranting. We haven't played most of the video, but I do want to add something. Phil Labonte, co-host on Timcast IRL. He has a child, and in a strong relationship, and platinum rock star, who has opened for Metallica to a stadium of 90,000 and more. Traveled around the world, met some of the craziest people. Man, the guy's got stories. He's 5'6". It's remarkable that people live in this world. Now, I'm going to be honest. Certainly, if you're tall, you do have advantages. But I don't understand this. It is completely possible to, what is it like? Tom Cruise is like 5'7", 5'8". Not super short, but not very tall. Daniel Radcliffe, I think, is 5'7" as well. To be fair, he started as a kid, so he's always had that Q rating. It's crazy to me that they're like, I'm short, so I can't succeed. And it's just like, stop believing the radicalization. But let's jump to the apex here.
From everyone else in a way that we have never seen before. When we gained access to any and all information, it gave us the ability to shape our beliefs into something uniquely our own. But the consequence was that agreeableness, even when it meant conforming to a group you didn't fully align with, began to erode. The amount of identity subgroups on the internet is insane now. There's gooners, doomer zoomers, e-girls, femcels, sigma males, neo-trad wives, based nationalists, anarcho-primitivists. The list is endless. You might not trust your government, your school, or your parents, but you can trust those guys in your Discord server or subreddit who can understand all the things that you're going through that nobody else can.
And what I will say to all this stuff, one of the biggest issues is that people in these communities typically don't want to hear anything that contradicts their worldview, and it's because they have community. That's why I always tell people, join our Discord server. Community is our strength. The point is this. We are social creatures that survived because we formed community with each other. If we were together and working together, we could defeat even a great bear. And if someone were to come to us and try and sow division, we'd die. If you left your tribe or were exiled, you would die. The likelihood you'd survive, very, very slim. So social cohesion was extremely important. And even if someone deviated from the social norms, they would hide it to try and fit in. That's what's happening now online. So I know we talked a lot about the looksmaxxing thing because he kept bringing it up, but this is going to continue, and I don't think that anything can stop it. It's the granularization of culture, as I was describing last night, which is why I decided to do this video this morning. It's very interesting. If we have a fractured culture in every direction, I don't know how you stop that. Don't look at me. It's just something that's happening. At least what I can say is, we have a Discord community at timcast.com, and there's tens of thousands of people that hang out. They come and go. Usually a few thousand are active at any moment. There's pre-shows, early shows, after shows, and it's a group of people who are rational and trying to understand the world, not so radicalized in any direction. Good people, smart people. And in fact, I think we've had so far five couples form and get married. That's community, baby. People are meeting individuals who share similar worldviews and understand these things, and they're aligned. Being a looksmaxxer, good luck finding a relationship, because some woman's going to be like, you sound insane. To be fair, I bet he can get a lot of one-night stands, but there's going to be a lot of women who are going to be like, I don't want to be in a relationship with a guy who's obsessed and weird like this. But hey, it is what it is. What we do today is what matters, and if we survive the coming decentralization, it's what I don't know. It's going to be up to you. That's why I tell people, get away from the cities, buy a bunch of chickens, and learn to be self-sufficient. Not because you'll need to, but maybe one day, perhaps. I'm going to wrap it up there, my friends. Smash that like button, share that show, follow me on X and Instagram at TimCast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.